Hey, it's Josh Jacobs, and you're listening to Fantasy Football Counselor.
All right, guys, it's it. This is it. This is draft weekend, the ultimate draft weekend. We've only got 2 more weekends till the season starts, but I know a lot of you guys are drafting this weekend. Guys, this is it. I'm going to give you guys 5 tips on draft day to dominate your draft. Yes, practical tips you can take with you and implement in regards to your strategy. Guys, I'm excited. I want to give you guys every possible tool to dominate your draft for Fantasy Football 2020. I'm going to do it here in this video with 5 practical draft day tips as part of your Fantasy Football draft strategy. I'm excited to get into it. Before I get into it, guys, also, these tips can help you, but what you guys need is the 16-round draft solution. Scrap the draft kits, the outdated magazines, the cheat sheets. This is the game changer. Get the 16-round draft solution, guys. Let's head on over right now to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. I've also linked it below. Get the 16-round draft solution. People ask me, what is in the 16-round draft solution? I'll tell you guys, it's a full video training of me walking you through all the optimal players in each and every single round, telling you who I like, who I don't like, based on the research and analytics that I've done. Last year, I helped you avoid Odell round 1, Le'Veon Bell round 1, Damian Williams round 2, Antonio Brown round 2. You avoided all those guys. Why? Because you got the 16-round draft solution and you listen to my stuff. Listen, guys, sleepers, breakouts, everything you need is here. I want you guys to crush your leagues. Guys, lion mentality. This is it. You can tell the energy is high this weekend. Everybody's excited. So head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com or link pinned comment here and link below on the YouTube channel. Guys, get 16 rounds. It'll help you crush your leagues. All right, let's talk about these 5 tips to dominate your draft, okay? You enter your draft, you're there, you've got the players you like, you've gotten 16 rounds, but I want to give you guys some practical tips, some more advanced stuff so you guys start thinking outside the box to crush your leagues, okay? Tip number 1. Now, some of this stuff may seem common sense. Some of this stuff may be like, oh, that's pretty good, right? It's up to you, but a lot of people avoid common sense. Common sense is not that common anymore, right? That's why we've been kind of trained in the fantasy industry to read these magazines, get these cheat sheets, and just go by the ADP rankings. Why I hate draft kits and cheat sheets? They're pointless because the rankings they're giving out are copy and paste. No analyst is taking risks. And I don't take risks just to take risks. I actually give you practical advice based on things that go up and down and the variances and things actually change. The top finishers last year don't always finish on top this year. And what you're getting in draft kits and cheat sheets are basically a lot of analysts that are, scared, that's the nice word to say it, are chicken shits of giving you real practical advice. So when you're in a draft, you're actually in a mock draft or reality draft, the platform that you're using lays out the players in ADP anyway. So you're not getting anything in draft because that's why 16 rounds is so powerful and is becoming the game changer, okay? So tip number 1 here, be picky and aim high on the depth chart. So what do I mean by that? I see it so often that players get a wide receiver 2 on a team when they could be, aiming for a wide receiver 1, right? Because they know that name or something like that. Listen, aim high on the depth chart of that team. So in the first couple rounds, it's easy to do that. But later, it starts getting a little bit harder, right? So you're going to start seeing like guys like, for example, T.Y. Hilton. He's a wide receiver 1 on his team. He's coming off in the 5th round. But a lot of people would rather have a wide receiver 2 on their team instead of T.Y. Hilton, which is pretty sad, right? They'll go for like a John Brown or something like that, or they'll go for a player that, well, that's a bad example, but they'll go for a guy who's technically a wide receiver 2 on their team ahead of T.Y. Hilton when you get a wide receiver 1. No matter where you are. I'll give you another example. Kareem Hunt, okay? He's coming off, let's say, 5th, 6th round, for example. I'd rather have, Cam Akers in the 5th round or someone that could potentially aim high on the, end up high on the depth chart or be the starter or get that volume instead of getting like a Kareem Hunt. Now, I think Kareem Hunt's going to do great. I'm not high on Nick Chubb at all this year, but he's technically a wide receiver 2, a running back 2. Give me Cam Akers, who could be a RB1 with upside. Now, again, there's more variables to this story. There's obviously a strategy too. I'm not just going to get Cam Akers as my RB1. I'm going to get running backs ahead of him, but you guys get the point here. Aim high on the depth chart. Never settle, okay? Never, ever settle. Aim high and be very picky. It's kind of a 2-part number 1 tip here, okay? All right, number 2. draft awareness. So you got to be doing a lot of mock drafts. I use Fantasy Football Calculator. You can use whatever you want. You can use the drafting platform that you're using and run some mock drafts there. Run a lot of mock drafts. You should have been doing this. That's why you got to subscribe to this channel and leave a thumbs up and stay glued to this channel. We go year round. We've been mocking a lot. We've been doing a ton of mock drafts in different positions. The reason why you do mock drafts, like anything, right? Train hard, fight easy. You got to train hard to fight easy so the fight is easier. So if you really want a player, for example, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, let's just say you want him. Now, typically, he's coming off as early as 5th overall. Now, some people are going crazy, drafting him 1st overall, depending on your league. So, again, every league, every fantasy league, all your friends, everything is different, right, based on who you're playing with. But you got to be aware. If you really want Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you got to say, hey, I got to get him at this point. Now, I'm not telling you where to draft him right here, but I'm saying, like, if you really want him, maybe you got to go 1st overall. I'm not saying to go 1st overall, but I'm saying maybe that's what you got to do if you really want that player, but you got to be aware of where that player is going so you don't avoid him. Now, I really like David Johnson this year in the 4th round, ideally, but I'll give you a quick example. If I'm drafting, let's say I'm drafting first, I go Saquon, I come back, I go Gurley. Let's just say example, right? And then I go Fournette. If I don't get David Johnson here on the turn at the 24th, 25th pick, right? Remember, snake draft first. I have to wait 24 picks. It comes back to me again. Let's say I go Gurley here or someone like that, Galladay. Then I come back and I see, if I don't get David Johnson here, he's not going to come back 24 picks all the way to, to my 4th pick. It's just not going to happen, right? It's very unlikely. Maybe it will. Depends on the league. So you got to be aware. If you really want that player, you got to know when to get him. Know when to hold him, know when to fold him, right? So that's tip number 2, draft awareness, so you don't get sniped. Be aware of when players are coming off and what players are available. So this is very, very important, guys. Very, very practical. Tip number 3, names aren't everything. Now, again, I see this all the time. I would rather have a guy stashed on my bench, a late round guy, let's say, for example, like an A.J. Dillon, than getting like a Rex Burkhead. Well, I know the name Rex Burkhead. It sounds familiar to me. I've heard of it. James White even, I don't see the upside with him. But I'd rather have a guy, a Zach Moss maybe, a potential breakout guy, a guy that we haven't really heard of, was drafted relatively early by a team that's a rookie or someone like that. Now, I'm not just saying just rookies. Second-year players could apply to this or whatever it is. But don't just draft a name. Another example, 3 years in a row, the mainstream led you astray, and they are just going for the popular names. Last year, everybody went Odell round 1. I warned against Odell Beckham round 1. Why? Because years to wow us were not wowed. 3 years he busted in a row, okay? 3 years in fantasy. Guys, listen. He was with Baker. I said, avoid Baker, avoid this. Landry's the one on that team. People thought I was crazy. Why? Because I avoided the name. It sounded crazy for me to say Landry is better than Odell, but Landry was better than Odell, and he is a better player than Odell. Yet people think it sounds crazy because you are going with what the mainstream are telling you, what they've conditioned you to believe is a good player based on marketing ability, right? Yeah, Odell is great marketing, but is he a phenomenal player? No, not necessarily. Now, this year, again, Juju seems like the obvious name, but I'm going to go with Deontay and Claypool, stack them, and hope that one of them emerges over Juju. So you got to be strategical and don't just draft players on names. Be aware, guys, and be practical, okay? All right, don't just go with what the mainstream is telling you. Tip number 4 here, balance your roster with upside and, of course, security. Now, there's no safe players in fantasy football, but what you can try to do is try to get the safest players possible early. So what I mean by that, when I mean safe, guys that are going to get the volume, guys that are, like I said earlier, aiming high on the depth chart, right? Be picky, aim high on the depth chart. You need a balanced roster. So in the earlier rounds, obviously you got to go for those guys that are going to eat, the guys that can get the volume. And this is why I like the robust RB strategy so much, because there's only a handful of running backs you can get that have minimal committees and that are going to be slated to get that volume, that aren't going to be hoarded away in regards to volume at the goal line with another running back breathing down their neck. This is why I don't like Nick Chubb in the first round, because again, Kareem Hunt is there. He's going to eat. I mean, he outscored him 6 out of the 8 games last year in PPR. So again, when I look at this, I say balanced roster. I also don't want to play safe all the way, right? So I don't want to, go through this draft and get like a Frank Gore, James White, boring players, Philip Lindsay. Oh, I feel safe, Philip Lindsay. No, because I'm not aiming high in the depth chart. I'm just going for the name that I know. and I'm just playing it safe. No, you don't play it safe the entire draft. You got to have a balanced roster of upside, a balanced roster of safer players, volume getters, and then also when I say balanced, that can mean a couple other things, right? Other than just upside and safety, that could also mean that you need a balanced roster. You don't just want all running backs, right? You want running backs, you want wide receivers, you want enough wide receivers to cover some depth. For example, quarterback, I always get 2 quarterbacks. I don't care. I always get 2 quarterbacks to cover my bye week, cover lack of performance, and cover potential injury, right? So it's a balanced roster, and that's what I help you shape properly in the 16-round draft solution. If this is making sense to you, then say, hey, man, I got to get 16 rounds because then I can go through every single player with you and walk you through a practical strategy and the players I like optimal, omitting all of the terrible guys that could potentially bust, okay? Don't buy into guys that are full gold. Last year was fool's gold with Damian Williams. He was an early second-round pick. I said, no, Derrick Henry, guys. And I looked at the offseason stuff. I saw Derrick Henry was crushing it. I saw Derrick Henry was talking to Eddie George, his mentor. I saw Derrick Henry had to eat contract year. You got to look at all of the variables, okay, guys? So, again, I talk about that in 16 rounds. Get it at thefantasyfootballcounts.com. Final tip here, guys, and I talked about it briefly. I'm going to give you, it's actually a 3-part thing here. Load up on running backs. You can wait on tight ends, okay? Okay, so load up on running backs. You can wait on tight ends and always anchor your team with an ace quarterback. So again, this is kind of a 3-part, 1-tip type thing. Why do I say load up on running backs? Because they're the most scarce position, right? And you got to get them early. Once you got them early, you don't got to worry because after the 5th round, particularly when I'm talking practical strategy for 2020, after the 5th round, there isn't any running backs that you could trust. I mean, there is some guys that could break out. DeAndre Swift, Akers, Zach Moss. All these guys could break out. They all could do good, but you're rolling the dice, right? With wide receivers, you're still getting wide receiver 1s available in the 5th round. T.Y. Hilton, Chark, whatever he says. I call him Shark anyway. Brandon Cooks is available. You got Will Fuller still sitting there if you want him. You got Terry McLaurin sometimes falling into the 5th round. There is a ton of wide receiver 1s, okay? You can get after the 5th round. That's an example. There's far more than that, but I'm just giving you a quick example, okay? All right, so you can wait. So load up on running backs, okay? You can need an ace quarterback. I always like to anchor my team with an ace quarterback. Now, you don't have to wait. There's a ton of value in the 7th round. You get yourself a Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen. There's a ton of guys you can still get after the 6th round. You don't necessarily have to go Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, okay? And you wait on tight end. When I say wait on tight end, do not invest a 2nd or 3rd round pick because there's a big drop-off after the first 2 tight ends. You got Kelsey, and then you got like everyone else. Now, Kittle could do well, Ertz, but then you got a big drop-off. So I want to search in the later rounds for the guy that potentially comes up. Give you an example. The year everybody was going Gronkowski is a couple years ago. Everyone went Gronkowski round 1. Okay, I said stay away, get a running back there. I drafted George Kittle. I think it was the 10th round. George Kittle finished ahead of Gronkowski, okay? So you got to kind of find those diamonds in the rough, guys. Maybe a Gesicki, maybe a Hawkinson, someone like that, and you get him later. Absolute value. You pay nothing to get him, and he's going to win, probably be a top 5 guy. That's what you, and again, I walk through this. Again, all of this in the 16-round draft session. So that's 5 tips for you guys. What I just said, I mean, I'm talking about it. Hopefully this is hitting you guys. Oh my God, this makes sense, right? So these are practical tips that are going to help you. None of this cookie cutter, hey, these are the last players last year, draft them again. That's BS, okay? That's not going to help you guys win your leagues, okay? If you want that competitive edge, get the 16-round draft solution. I also offer a service called Fantasy Direct. So, yeah, the draft is part of it, but you also got to be sharp throughout the season. And when I say that, you got to be sharp on the waiver wire. You got to get all the optimal players to start each week, matchups, that type of thing. So I send you guys all the optimal players for DFS. To translate to year-long as well. If you're just a year-long player, I give you the waiver wire pick, starts and sits, all of that. I give you that delivered to you guys via text at Fantasy Direct is the service. You get that at thefantasyfootballcounts.com under programs. So that's it, guys. 5 practical fantasy football draft strategy tips to help you guys crush your draft. It is draft weekend. This is one of the biggest draft weekends of the year. Football's almost here. We're just under 2 weeks away. This is going to be huge. I cannot wait. Big year coming, guys. Subscribe and leave a couple fantasy questions below. I'll try to get to as many as I humanly possibly can. Thank you for being here, guys. Go out there and dominate your draft. Let's get it.